It's Tuesday, October 12th. 2021, I feel I have to point out, as some of you have pointed out, the YouTube algorithm has been recommending really old videos, so now you get the year. I don't know. We'll probably forget to do that next week. You got government and robot news in this episode.
And something is conspicuously missing. It's Krista.
It's Krista. She's on vacation.
So let's start out with some existential dread, because this is only going to get worse. And maybe the worst possible thing about this is you might never know until the last moment. It's like heart disease and blood pressure.
Yeah.
You don't know.
You don't know until it's too late.
Till they come for you.
Exclusive in Forbes. Government secretly orders Google to identify anyone who searched a sexual assault victim's name, address, and telephone number. Why not searching, didn't we learn from the Boston thing? It's like, we want to find anybody that searched for pressure cookers on the days leading up to the thing. And it's like,
How to kidnap. Yeah, so this seems crazy, but after the story, there were some updates, and was it the EFF or the ACLU or somebody came along, and they're like, oh, hey, we've got some more examples. And one of them was a little bit worse.
Yeah.
But, it's the same kind of thing. The other one was explosives. Somebody tried to make explosives. Anybody who searched those kinds of terms, same kind of thing.
Now, we're going to have another story later about some leaked text messages. And I know what you're thinking is like, oh, they couldn't possibly log everything that everybody searches for from now until the end of time. You just be thinking about that as we go through the news. We're going to set the tone.
And let's think about, they're willing to do that, but will it actually change anything? Probably not.
Probably not.
You might catch, once in a while, you might catch more people than you would have otherwise, but you will just be stomping on the face of your citizenry, which is kind of what they're into.
First on CNN, the Biden administration is going to convene 30 countries to crack down on ransomware threat. So it's like, we've identified 30 countries where a lot of ransomware comes from. We don't feel like that the police are doing an adequate job for that. So let's talk. And then, of course, if the talks break down, there will be sanctions. Don't worry.
And this is not about, oh, hey, guys, let's get together and talk about what we should do to safeguard our own networks, maybe some guidelines we can hand out to people. How can we really do something positive here? No, this is more about expanding power.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's the headline time. The U.S. to tell critical rail and air companies to report hacks and name cyber chiefs. So if you're a company and you have any kind of tangential relationship to infrastructure, you're going to have to name a cyber chief that is responsible for letting the government know when you've been compromised.
And you have a window for how long you can tell them after you find out. I suppose you could cook the books a little bit and say when you found out was later than it was, but then you got to worry about a whistleblower, right?
Yeah, that's already happened in a couple of notable cases. It's like, well, we weren't really completely sure that we were hacked. We weren't sure that it was just a misconfiguration or like just the background hum of the awfulness of the internet. It's pretty typical.
I can't remember if I deleted the Elizabeth Warren story. Nope, I didn't.
Yeah, it was more than 24 or more than 48 hours, but you got hacked. Warren bill gives 48 hours to report ransom payments. And so this is not the same thing that we were talking about in the air and rail bill. This is another thing. This is anybody that pays a ransomware, you have to report it.
Yeah, the other one was just critical infrastructure.
Yes.
Although they'll expand that to be nearly everything.
Yeah. Although I can definitely tell you the State Department is monitoring certain Bitcoin addresses, and they will call you. And like, why did you pay this money to Iran?
Well, that is illegal. They've been.
We didn't know the ransomware people were in Iran.
They've been open about that.
Yeah, they're going to probably cut that off at the Coinbase level, which is another story that we have later.
Which effectively undermines the spirit of Bitcoin, doesn't it?
It does.
Wow, weird how that works. Now, last week we brought you a story about Stir Shaken, the new anti-robocall thing, and several stories pointed out had some loopholes.
Oh. What is going on?
Yeah, I'm getting Teams calls. All just crazy.
Why is this happening?
Oh, it's ridiculous. And a lot of people were like, hey, look at these loopholes. You could drive a truck through these, if not a mega yacht. What about this? And the FCC comes out this week and they're announcing this like, oh, look, we're going to do this really good thing. They're just cleaning up their mess here.
Yeah. The FCC plans to rein in, quote unquote, gateway carriers that bring foreign robocalls to the U.S. So somebody has figured out, hey, wait a minute, we don't have these absurd long distance charges from international calls anymore. So all of a sudden, it's gone up dramatically. So Stir Shaken would actually factor in for this first, but there's still going to be loopholes.
What is the meter on this robot measuring?
His frustration level.
It's high. It's dangerously high.
It's about to go kill all humans.
And a rare judge that still sees some kind of liberty happening online. They are so few and far between. But thankfully, because of this one, we will get maybe more access to things.
Cloudflare does not have to cut off a copyright infringing website, a judge has ruled. This was amazing because the lawyers very deliberately knew that what they were arguing was stupid and not the words. Like the lawyers on the copyright cartel side, as always, are trying to reimagine what the words in the law mean to better suit their case. And the judge finally called them out on it and said, no, that's not what this is about. They're a common carrier. Stop that. It's like 3/4 of the way down.
Chabria with 2 H's? Why would you put 2 H's in the name Chabria? Anyway, we talk a lot of smack about how nobody in the judiciary understands technology, but Chabria. Give props to Chabria.
We got to get him to the Supreme Court ASAP.
I think that's locked up for a little while. Who are you going to kill? Oh, and some bad news for Oracle. I'm sure this weighed heavily on you. Right?
I laughed a little.
Did you maybe miss a couple of meals because you just couldn't bring yourself to eat?
I thought it was fun. Well, they didn't really rule on this. They were just like, really, why are you wasting our time? That was what the Supreme Court said.
I think this effectively gets rid of it, right?
Yeah.
We're probably done.
Yeah. Oracle, the JEDI contract thing that they appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, this is moot. We don't need to hear this because the contract has already gone away. Why are you wasting everybody's time?
Yeah, JEDI's been gone for, 3 or 4 months now? 4 or 5 maybe?
Why do you want us to rule on this? Like, to me, that Oracle pressed forth with this, they knew that it was wasting everybody's time. Their goal was not to, right some injustice. It was to send a message that if you don't give us money in the future, we're going to tie your contract up in court from now until the end of time, regardless of whatever rules you might have in place, regardless of how good we might do it. Although the Oracle Cloud, actually, I've had a few reports that the performance in the Oracle Cloud is actually pretty good.
Does that excuse this?
No.
Remember when George W. Bush campaigned and won on a platform of tort reform? I remember that.
I remember that too.
Not very many people remember that.
No.
Well, if you're in California and you don't like other humans, excellent news.
California DMV gives the Cruise and Waymo go-ahead to charge for rides. So if you're using Cruise or Waymo in the California, you can be charged money now. Previously, they were allowed to operate, but they weren't allowed to charge money.
I hear a Teams call. Where is that coming from? Somewhere in this room, there's a Teams call.
I think it was down the hall. I probably just need to close the door.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that'll be cool. Did you mention the one company gets to do a much larger area and 65 miles an hour? The other company only gets to do 35 miles an hour.
Well, the other one, I thought it was like a highway in city. So I could see like you wouldn't want to drive more than 35 in San Francisco anyway.
I would want to. Well, this is about the crypto stuff. So obviously, cryptocurrency leads to ransomware, leads to angry governments and so forth. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to improve your network security? No, of course not. No, you attack business. Yeah,
the U.S. DOJ is asking cryptocurrency exchanges like Coinbase to block transactions to known, malware, ransomware, Bitcoin addresses.
And they probably will, because I think Coinbase just kind of lives in terror.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones trying to do it the right way.
As right as they possibly can.
And it's a minefield. They don't know what to do.
It really is.
And the other big thing this week is, Biden, as we mentioned earlier, he's really, really doubling down on this whole chip thing. And he thinks that he can legislate his way out of that like he tries to do with everything else. So we're going to make rules for other countries. And they say, you know what? We don't have to do that.
Taiwan's TSMC, after U.S. request, says that it won't leak sensitive info. So, like you were saying, it's this White House request. Like, how many chips are you making for whatever? It's all the saber rattling from our auto industry. And
unions. Who needs those unions?
And TSMC has said we're gonna comply with the White House's request, but don't worry, we're not gonna leak sensitive info because TSMC has a lot of customers that compete with one another.
Well, they kind of tiptoed around it, but I think in the end what they said was we will not comply if it is your, secret information. We'll never give it up. And they said they'd be willing to come to the table and talk about some way to deal with the shortage, but they didn't say anything about giving up data.
Yeah,
because that would be suicidal.
Yeah.
In a business sense.
Yeah.
And the UK, they're having their own plan with the cyber attacks. This one is decidedly more, I don't know. I feel like you might get more done here.
Archduke Ferdinand.
But you also open up abuse. The ability for the people to abuse this is going to be really high.
The UK plans to invest £5 billion in retaliatory cyber attacks. So, hey, your ransomware people, are you targeting a bunch of UK businesses? Well, guess what? The Crown is coming after you, and they're going to encrypt your stuff in retaliation.
This is the digital version of, what do they call it, the Samson Doctrine or Project Samson or whatever?
Yeah. I was thinking more like this is the thing that led to World War I, but, it's fine.
Oh, you think they'll false flag this?
Yeah. The Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, I know. World War I was the assassination. Well, no, I don't understand the correlation. Who's Ferdinand in this?
Ferdinand is the one that died. The random shooter will be the UK, and Archduke Ferdinand will be like Russia's gas and pipeline industry.
Okay. That's a good question. Now, when you retaliate, can you go after something that might cause loss of life?
There's been a lot of there was a pipeline explosion that was attributed to an espionage op in the 80s, but there's been recent information that came out that said, no, that was maybe just a happy coincidence. So I don't really know if it was the disinformation campaign or the real one, but it's easy to imagine things like Stuxnet, like the sabotage of the nuclear enrichment accelerators. Things like that happened in the Cold War that we maybe didn't hear quite as much about.
But think about a DNS magnification attack, right?
Yeah.
Isn't the UK becoming an unsecured DNS server?
Basically.
In terms of hack them, pretend to be somebody else, and let them magnify the attack back to the other party.
That's the perfect way to do a false flag operation.
The North Koreans have already drawn up the plans. They've got a whiteboard going for this already. And Ireland is perhaps, in the modern world, most famous for not charging a lot of taxes. Not for the people, for the corporations. And oh boy, do all the other countries not like that. And so they've been trying to get them on board with this new thing.
Ireland has signed on to a global deal seeking to curb tax avoidance. Okay.
15% minimum for all corporations. And they're changing the rules on it doesn't matter where the money originates. If it goes down in your country, the taxes have to be paid there.
So a lot of companies are going to have a mass exodus of Ireland.
Yeah. That's going to be tough for the Irish politicians. A lot of slush money going away. But supposedly everybody's doing it, so it should be an even playing field. Although they're the ones that are cheating right now, so it still hurts them. And the EU Parliament has done something that sounds good on paper. I wonder how many holes will be pushed through this.
Oh, quite a few.
I imagine enough for all of the spies to not have to worry.
European Parliament calls for a ban on facial recognition in large print. In small print, it says the non-binding resolution also asks for AI-based predictive policing ban. Womp womp. It's not binding.
Now, my experience with law enforcement is if you just give them a non-binding suggestion, they will always follow it. And they'll never take the shortcut.
Oh, absolutely.
So
we totally won't have all these hilarious recordings on YouTube of police saying, how can we incriminate this perp?
I just watched one of those earlier today.
Yeah.
Where a guy was, was one of these guys, and I admit this has to be super annoying, who goes and films them no matter what they're doing. And they took his camera, but it was still on. They didn't realize it, and they were cooking up, all right, what are we going to charge him with?
Yeah. Was that the protester guy? That's the one that I saw. They were literally
that was we probably saw it from the same place.
Yeah. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's so infuriating because it's like, this should not be happening.
We know that one of the big narratives these days is that X is hacking us. X is interfering with our elections. X is trying to turn the people against one another. And if you don't pay a lot of attention to international news, you might think that, it's like, oh, it's Russia that's always doing it. But you have to understand, Russia is running these same headlines. You just replaced the country. And if your government is smart and somewhat evil, they can really weaponize this.
Singapore passes a foreign intelligence law allowing authorities to block internet content. Experts have raised alarm that the bill is a tool to crush dissent, with the media watchdog saying it carries the seeds of the worst totalitarian leanings. Oh,
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Yep.
So if for any reason they decide to put you on this list and say that you are you're trying to spread foreign dissent among the people, then they can just turn it off.
It's just not credible that the boots on the ground police would go to all this trouble to frame just a guy who's protesting and not doing anything else. That seems crazy. And yet,
here we are. The Ukrainians have made themselves an arrest, and we suspect heavily that this is some sort of hacker, probably a ransomware person, but we don't know exactly who they worked for.
Ukrainian cops cuffed two over $150 million ransomware gang allegations and seized $1.3 million in cryptocurrency. So they were able to track down some ransomware operators. But don't forget, it's kind of a hierarchy. Don't know if these were high-level operators or low-level operators.
I think low, because one of them had, like the hardware and stuff, and was actually doing it. The other guy was just one of the mules that gets the money out of the ATMs and stuff. So I don't think these were high level. I don't think the boss would be with the mule.
They've got an awful lot of money for the low-level people.
Well, it's pretty easy to do, right?
Yeah.
Software as a service.
As we'll learn later, there is some degradation of the rank and file. So some of those organizations may be breaking down a little bit because there is so much money.
I gotta say, I cannot keep track of the antitrust regulatory crackdowns on Apple, Google, Facebook. Like, they just come so often and from so many directions. I thought, do we not already see this one? I guess this is new.
This one's new. Exclusive in Reuters. Apple is going to face EU antitrust charges over NFC chip, according to sources. This has to do with the near-field payment system. Some documents have come to light that suggests that Apple intends for the near-field payment stuff to lock you into the Apple ecosystem, and that is a sort of a fundamental problem. The documentation, if the article is to be believed, it doesn't really look good for Apple because there's a lot of language in there that's like, did you go to law school to learn about antitrust? And you shouldn't put this in documents when you say things like, we're going to force people to use this, and if they switch to another carrier, it's going to be painful because you can't move all of your payments and stuff over.
They really do. You know what? We should start a consulting team and go in to
coach them,
to go into the giant tech companies. But the only thing that we're training them in is anti-hubris.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to learn that you are not some kind of god because you have $1 billion. You have to still act like a human being, and we will help you with that.
There was another one of those police training videos where it was like, when you go to a perp's door and you don't have a warrant and they only open the door a little bit, be nice to them, and at the end go to shake their hand, and if they open the door to shake your hand, you knock the door open and yank them out. And then there wasn't anybody at the door to stop you from going in. And it's like, wow, that's actually like legal. And they're like, yeah, most of the time that passes fine because then it's just your word against theirs. And it's like, what is going on? It would be like that.
You talk through the door, you never open it. And every time you speak, you move in case there's a bullet coming through that door. Pro tip. Pro home defense tip. Now, this one we have seen before. Absolutely. But just change some of the names.
Dutch watchdog finds that Apple Store payment rules are anti-competitive. This is the EU piling on the blood in the water from the Epic case. So Epic may never get to taste the delicious fruit of their labors, but companies the world over are going to enjoy some of the result from Apple. Because Epic's argument is basically, we have customers, we want to sell customers a thing on their phone, and Apple is interfering with that business transaction. And when you frame it like that, that is sort of fundamentally like the capitalist way of dealing with that. And so that's what the Dutch are saying here is like, well, Apple, doesn't have a right to grift on that transaction because they haven't really contributed meaningfully to it.
And Apple says, you're in our garden.
Yeah.
We'll do what we want.
You don't own your phone. You're renting it from us.
Do you know who I am? Japan has been somewhat late to this bandwagon, but they have also of late really been stepping it up.
Apple and Google are under antitrust scrutiny in Japan for their mobile OS. People in Japan are starting to notice, hey, wait a minute, isn't this just a handheld computer? Why can't I put my own arbitrary software on this?
And Japan, I don't remember the stat, but Japan was overwhelmingly iPhones, which I found surprising. 70%. I guess that's pretty much what it is here too, right?
Yeah, well, it's like, I don't know. Some places it seems like it's 60-40. Some places seems like it's 70-30. And some places seems like it's 70-30 the other way.
Well, in Japan, they love the iPhones, but they don't love being locked in quite so much. So they're going to take a look at that. In Africa, we have seen a lot of big tech companies, surely. Remember Facebook? Go into Africa and be like, oh, we love you. Let us give you infrastructure and build all this stuff for you and do all these wonderful things. You just have to register with our thing. And the Africans, in their defense, were always like, nah, I don't think so. We know your game. We don't want it. But somehow the Chinese have a silver tongue when they get in there. And the Africans are just like, yep, take whatever you got.
Africa internet riches have been plundered, contested by a Chinese broker. So this has to do with their IPv4 addresses. And I was surprised by that a little bit because a lot of these African countries, their infrastructure is growing and they need their IPv4 addresses to grow their infrastructure, so they say. And a lot of them are controlled by a Chinese broker who's fighting them tooth and nail to hang on to the IPv4 addresses because, well, there's not enough IPv4 addresses. But I think since Africa wasn't really connected before, I don't understand why they would want a lot of new IPv4 addresses. They should just go straight IPv6 and be fine, unless it's just older equipment that's powering their infrastructure or something.
I don't know if it's necessarily that they need their IPv4 addresses. I think it's more about like, hey, those are ours.
We should be making money on those.
And one guy benefited from the transaction. Like this wasn't, the Africans got together and they were like, I don't know, maybe this is good. It was just one guy stealing all the money and giving up the IP addresses. Yeah. So totally illegal. They should get them back. Here's the terrifying thing about this picture. I don't know if you've noticed it, but the internet is so slow. Those thumbnails are coming in one at a time.
It's disappointing. It is Windows 10 also.
And it's all because of China.
Maybe they're happy to have other people use their IP addresses, but just collect the money.
You're crapping on them for Windows 10. It came out on October the 4th. They don't have enough bandwidth to download thumbnails, and you want them to be ahead of the curve on their operating system update?
I was hoping it for Linux, not Windows 11.
Okay, I see what you're saying. We've seen several countries embrace cryptocurrencies. What was the volcano one? Is that Ecuador? Ecuador. They did their thing. I don't know if people ever got their money in Ecuador, did they?
El Salvador.
Oh, that was El Salvador, right, yeah. And a couple other places have kind of embraced it. Some of these smaller countries that have been economically hit in the past are seeing this as maybe like a way out or whatever. Also, they don't always tell you this one, but countries that repatriate a lot of money from Western countries, they love this because it makes it super easy.
Bitcoin is set to become a legal payment in Brazil. So you can pay your government debts and other public debts with Bitcoin. Okay.
I don't think they've worked out anything to do about the transaction fees. They were talking about using it at McDonald's.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's going to add a considerable tax to your McDonald's. And here in the U.S., we're trying to, well, when I say we, I mean the government is trying to downplay regular cryptocurrency. It's all about that central bank digital coin.
Yeah, which is a kind of cryptocurrency, but also centralized.
I don't know if I'd call that a cryptocurrency.
Look,
so the same way, you know how you were always talking about how the Zoom encryption wasn't really encryption because there was that third party. I'd say the same thing about the central bank digital currency. The cryptography is one-sided.
I'll go you one even darker than that. It's like it doesn't matter if it's centralized or not when the thing. So think about like all the cryptocurrency addresses and Coinbase. All the State Department has to do is tell Coinbase these cryptocurrency addresses are blacklisted. And so you get a transaction from one of those addresses that was blacklisted. It was like, oh, that was ransomware money that you got paid somehow. That's ours now.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And the bar for doing that will be incredibly low.
Yeah.
Because how are you ever going to get it back?
Yeah.
Oh, this person visited a right-wing website. Take their money.
Yep.
But anyway, that's the hell that's going to be our country pretty soon. And other countries are just lining up to do the same thing.
New Zealand exploring possibility of issuing a digital currency. It's going to have all of the bad things about regular currency and all of the worst things about digital currency all rolled into one.
Did you see that great clip from there? I don't know what her title is. Is she a prime minister?
I don't know.
But she literally, I mean, you know, without thinking it through, I imagine, she was talking about the thing, you know, and she said, please, you can only get your information from us, from me. Ignore all other sources of information. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but not much at all. She basically said, don't trust anybody except the government. We will care for all of your information needs.
She had the tone of, we're going to give you lots of money to take care of you, but we can ensure that welfare recipients only, you know, will have such a level of control that you can only buy one thing of detergent a week and, you know, one thing of soda and one thing of this, and we will control your spending down to the nth degree because we can track every single transaction to the most minute detail automatically and at a country level.
I remember they tried that in another country. A lot of people died.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate. Well, India has some new payment rules that are going down. It has to do with recurring subscriptions, and it's probably a good thing because I think they were getting a lot of scams with that. That is a really common scam, is to get you signed up and to hit you over and over. But I think this is where the government of India and then the tech sector aren't really, the gears aren't meshing. They're not together the way that they should be.
A lot of metal filings in the bottom of the casing.
Yeah, oh, grinding sounds.
Tech giants brace for impact as India and in India as new payments rule goes into effect. So this is Apple, Google, and a bunch of other giant tech companies. This is a deadline that was pushed back from March of 2021. And basically anything that's more than about $67 US as a recurring payment, which seems like a lot, has to have sort of a pre-warning that is sent in text message or email, whatever the user's preference is, ahead of time to approve, because they may not realize that that's recurring. I thought this had to do with the Apple App Store thing, because it's pretty common in the App Store if you've got a kids game where it's like, oh, you can, you know, pay $1 to get something, but it turns out that that's $1 recurring subscription to get bubbles or whatever in the kids game. That's a really common scam.
Yeah, I remember the SMS thing we talked about last week where you weren't even sure it was happening. Your SMS was getting hijacked and it was signing you up for like dog facts for $35 a month. Yeah.
And it turns out this doesn't address any of that. This is just the high dollar values. And for some reason, the tech companies are fighting against this, which is weird because it's almost like they're perpetuating the scam.
Well, I think it's just because they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to break things and it's going to be annoying. The man hours that you're going to have help desk for that.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy. Well, moving on to the robot section. Of course, we all know about the labor shortage. You know, you can't hire people. It's just the workers are not there. What do you do if you have a labor-intensive thing that you need to be done? It's obvious. You go to the robots.
Robots take over Italy's vineyards as wineries struggle with worker shortages amid the thing. They're not as good as workers, but they're more reliable.
And they work all the time. So I think this one is collecting the grapes. They did have a really cool machine. Of course, this is Wall Street Journal, so it wasn't here. The one I found was like a industry rag for vineyards. And they had this amazing thing. It's like this big like closet on wheels with a door, and you put it over your plants and close it all up, and it UVs them for powdery mildew.
Huh.
Powdery mildew, apparently a big problem with the grapes. And I'll take care of it.
Wow.
Just a portable. I can't imagine that it's got to be a lot of electricity cost, right? And it can't be battery powered.
It's probably not an insane amount of electricity cost compared to the value of the wine.
It's probably true. Yeah. So, when you crack open a bottle, thank the robots. Thank your Alexa next time that you're drinking wine. This one was kind of a non-story because it says new tools. I didn't get that there were any actual new tools, right?
So I think
more pictures.
Well, I think this is a little bit clickbait, but I think this is also in response to Clearview AI, some of the stuff that they've they've said recently. So.
Yeah, he was bragging.
Yeah.
Clearview constantly does this.
Yeah.
Where they go out and brag about the most dystopian, horrifying things that they can.
I think that they feel like they have to do that or they're not going to survive. Like they're so on the ropes right now that they have to, get some kind of a buy-in from law enforcement. It's like, look, we've got the most dystopian Black Mirror thing you can imagine. Just give us some money. And it's like, oh, yeah, we'll protect you guys. Don't worry.
Well, they do have that.
Clearview AI has new tools to identify you in photos. This isn't, and so what we're saying is we don't really think that there's anything new here. We think that they're just doubling down on what they're saying publicly. So they're coming out and saying, no, this is what we're going to do. And not only are we going to continue to scan social media because of the whole LinkedIn ruling, which is just scraping public data, we're going to scrape public data from literally everywhere and put it in our database. And there's nothing you can do to stop us.
The team's just back to hear it.
Oh, yeah. What the hell?
It's over there somewhere. So, yeah, 10 billion photos. There's not that many people on Earth, is there? There's some duplicates in there.
More than a few.
It's just a shocking amount. Now, if you think back a couple of years ago where we had a spate of headlines where it was like states banning Clearview AI from scraping and stuff like that. And we were like, yeah, I wonder how long it'll take them to step that back up into full production mode.
About 3 months.
So, yeah, they've been there for a while. And he's bragging about all the stuff they could do. They did the reporter at the thing, ran him through 37 matches.
Yeah.
Incredible. If his picture probably is in the paper more than other people because he's a reporter.
It did talk a little bit about false positives also, because I think some of the results from that were some other random person that looked kind of similar.
Yeah. And then that person goes to prison.
Yeah, which has happened several times.
Well, here's a crazy headline, and I think if you read between the lines on this one, it's more about controlling them than doing anything good for the people. But all the talking points are about doing good things for the people.
Chinese AI gets ethical guidelines for the first time, aligning with Beijing's goal of reining in big tech. So the goal here, if you don't read it as having any kind of ulterior motive or anything like that, this is actually a reasonable document.
So they sum it up as make sure that artificial intelligence is always under the control of humans. Seems reasonable. Was this the one where I think they had 6, it was like the Asimov 6 rules, but the South China Morning Post never itemized them anywhere.
There was another article I read on this, and one of the 6 was basically don't exploit expectations that people have for commercial gain, or don't exploit, if someone has an expectation of privacy or moral security or whatever, don't exploit that with AI for commercial gain.
Wouldn't Clearview?
Clearview absolutely would run afoul of that.
Absolutely in violation of that. Now, if they actually enforce that, would that be a crazy world where China has more stringent, user protections than the U.S.?
Yeah, it would certainly. Facebook would be in trouble, and we'll talk about that in the business section. And Clearview would be in trouble, and a lot of the other law enforcement things would be in trouble. But it seems like some of China's own use of that internally would also run afoul of their own guidelines.
Oh, I'm sure the Communist Party would be completely excused from all this, right? Because they're doing this stuff. Well, what about because they got the cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
How does that mesh with?
So the guy that was getting a ticket for the walking gate thing,
or
that
smoking.
That would not be okay with their own rules.
I think they'd be okay with it.
Well, obviously they are okay with it.
Movies in space. Tom Cruise desperately wanted to be the first, but he won't be.
Russian actress and director to start making first movie on space station. The pair arrived at the International Space Station on Tuesday and aim to start shooting scenes for the first feature film made in orbit.
Sorry, Tom.
Aww.
It's not going to work out for you. But this is a really interesting headline, and this is the New York Times reporting on this, not any internal Russian media agency. And maybe there's a reason for that, because they just came up with a weird rule.
Russia tells its space reporters to stop reporting on the space program. Will this affect the coverage of Roscosmos? And it for sure will. So Putin basically handed this order down himself and was like, we are going to have some news from the state news agency, but we don't want any reporting from independent reporters. And so everybody was like, okay. So they do it.
Ars Technica, thank you, did give us some bullet points. But what this boils down to is if the military has touched your project ever, it falls under these rules.
Yeah.
And in this Russian space program, I don't think they have anything where that's not true.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No mocking Russia anymore.
They also point out that they have this thing set up over there, which, to be fair, is not that much different than what we do. It's just easier. It's just like less steps. Where if you run afoul of the administration, you get flagged so that all your social media posts is like, this is coming from foreign intelligence. And it doesn't matter if you can prove that you're not foreign intelligence. Once you get the flag, that's it.
So it's like the whole reason for these controls to exist is to put a muzzle on something regardless of how valid it is. It's going to be a knee-jerk reaction every time.
And again, you got to remember, that's the same thing that we do, except we blame them. See what's happening here?
What you're telling me is we need a vastly more decentralized internet.
World, perhaps, would be the way to do that. Then you just get warlords. I understand that there's somewhere in the middle of the slider, but we ain't there.
You think that we'll ever get to a point where like the remnants of Starlink is like the last open network because it's in space and no one can touch it, and so anybody with a radio can participate in the network, but it's otherwise not connected to anything?
Nah, we're too far along in our space programs. It'd be too easy to tear it down.
Oh, to like shoot them out or whatever. Yeah.
The first time it gets annoying to somebody with the space program, it's gone.
Time to deploy even more micro satellites that are super tiny, so too hard to hit with a ballistic missile.
And then we blot out the sun.
Or just use a lot of jammers. We've got business news and...
I don't remember.
That's fine.
Surprise
news.
Oh, my stomach's growling. And our first one is a bit of an update. This has been an ongoing saga. A lot of people had suspicions that they were doing this for nefarious reasons. This story came out too early, but we have since found out, yes, nefarious reasons.
GitHub removes GTA fan projects RE3 and REVC following new Take-Two DMCA notice. So these are fan-made projects that redo the graphics and stuff for games that you already own.
Still requires the base game.
You still must have the base game in order to use these repositories. So if there's any copyright infringement occurring here, it is, in my opinion, secondary. Like these repos aren't going to do you any good unless you have the game.
Might actually sell a few copies.
Yeah, might actually sell a few copies. But the reason that Take-Two is doing this is because they just came out with remastered versions because they want to sell you the same thing once again. This, as much goodwill as that company has earned in gamer communities and like Grand Theft Auto 5 and like being groundbreaking, this undoes a large amount of that goodwill, in my opinion, and we as gamers should boycott them.
Did we have goodwill with Take-Two?
I mean...
I don't think we did. They've done nothing but exploit us.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate.
But when GTA 6 comes out, well, I'll get it because they're so good at making fun games.
This is wrong.
It is very wrong. Now, to be fair, though, I mean, you built on somebody else's property, right?
Yeah, but
you kind of got to be ready for them to do whatever they want with it. But they didn't discourage it until they decided to make money off of it. Now, here's the big question, all right? Here's the one. You can't prove it, but if you could, would it change your mind if they never had the plans to do this till they saw the popularity of the mods?
Oh, that would be an extra layer of evil. Yeah. We have a lot of fan interest in this. How can we strangle that?
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, if you've got a lot of willpower, yeah, boycott them. But I'm not going to say to do it when I'm not doing it.
Well, okay, let's put it another way. Do you think if Take-Two offered the people that authored these things $1 million to just go away, just shut down the project, pull it and go away, or say that you support taking the projects down and we will, give you $1 million for your trouble, which is nothing for that company. They're going to pay the lawyers more than that. And that's what's really criminal here, in my opinion.
We've actually already earmarked that $1 million is going to the DRM company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can't spare it.
That's why it offends one's senses. I mean, GTA is so popular, it's basically a part of culture at this point.
Yeah.
The price you pay.
They even make merchandising money from GTA.
That is crazy that they, it's like, are you still GTA 5 online, like the shark cards and stuff like that, makes more money in a year than just about every other like games that we would review and be like, oh, this is a AAA title from last year. It's like, no, GTA 5 made more money on this old ass game.
Yeah. It's an insane business model, but you do have to admit they take like a decade of R&D to pump into that, and then it feeds them for 5-6 years. It's a weird business model. They do it really well, but I don't think that they would make a ton less money by not doing this kind of garbage.
Yeah, and no matter how much they want to make it about, oh, they didn't do the reverse engineering exactly right, or, well, there's maybe technically some copyright infringement because of how they figured out how the game engine works so they could overhaul it for what it is, and because it still requires the game to function, I don't see a problem here. It's like, do you remember the old He-Man toys? Like, you could get like the generic Castle Grayskull that like the feet would pop into because it had the little pegs, and it's like you could buy a generic playset that was not anything in the franchise, but it was still a lot of fun to play with. But and your He-Man, it was sized appropriately, and like you could stand them up and they would be in the thing, but it wasn't officially Mattel licensed whatever. This is kind of like that.
I don't think that's like by design. I just think they were all using the same factory.
Oh, okay.
So
who would ever consider that a copyright problem? It's like I want to take the works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and have something else, and it's like, well, you have to buy a copy of this book and combine it with this other book, and then you have the work.
Let me explain to you why that was not goodwill on the behalf of Mattel. Was it Mattel or Hasbro? It's Mattel,
probably both, right? Yeah.
And you can prove it. You can prove it tomorrow if you could do this quickly enough. Start selling He-Man toys. See what happens.
What about He-Man compatible toys?
Put that on the box. See what happens. And we have some capitulation. I don't think they wanted to. I think they were forced to because it was such a weak sauce block that they put on this thing. They did this so poorly. It was so easy to beat. They had to just be like, all right, we'll let you do it, because they couldn't stop it. This is like our southern border.
Yeah.
Might as well let them in, right? Because you can't stop it.
Microsoft shares Windows 11 TPM check bypass for unsupported PCs. It's like, if you're taking your hands, your fate into your own hands if you do this. But here you go.
It's just some registry edits, but because they're afraid that people are going to screw that up so much, there is now an official thing that you can set up and do this. You still have to have TPM 1.2 with Microsoft's version, but not with the regular hack. So they kind of half-assed it.
Well, this will let you run it on older surfaces, so that's nice.
And Windows 11 comes with a lot of extra stuff.
As we foretold.
There's a lot of extra stuff going on. That does not happen for free. That costs processing power.
Windows 11 might tank Ryzen CPU performance, AMD warns. AMD has said that Windows 11 might triple Ryzen cache latency and doesn't recognize the best cores yet. So as much work as went into Windows 11 for the as yet unreleased Alder Lake Intel CPUs, they took a giant crap all over AMD CPUs. And it can be fixed. It's not that it's running extra stuff. It's that they just screwed it up so bad. Yeah. Thanks, Microsoft.
So, who was that did that? PC World. They claimed they did their own testing and they couldn't reproduce the 15% loss. Theirs was more like 5%. But obviously, it's going to be different with every build.
So. And every different game that you play. Yeah. Some of the MOBAs and stuff suffer more than AAA titles.
And Microsoft has certainly been trying to give some lip service to open source. They did the Linux subsystem and all that stuff. They've been talking a lot more about Linux and, we're going to, all these open source projects, we're going to help them, we're going to fund them, we're going to bring them into the fold. Maybe not.
Microsoft's .NET Foundation is under fire as resigning board member questions its role. Don't tell us you're about the community and then go do the business of Microsoft. So it's like, hey, we can make .NET available on multiple platforms. there's some dissension here. And this is not a recent board member. This is a longtime board member who initially joined the board to try to help out with some open source goals for .NET projects and making .NET truly cross-platform. I think they've got some valid criticisms.
He brings up one obvious point, which was WinGet. WinGet started out as, was it apt-get?
Yep.
Which Microsoft did not own. Microsoft basically destroyed it and made WinGet, which is exactly like it.
Now, we did a video on WinGet, and it used to be awesome because you could go and get it, and then you could just WinGet install whatever. Windows 11 comes with a version of WinGet, but guess what? It requires you to be logged into the App Store. But downloading stuff, most things from the App Store doesn't require you to be logged in. If you're downloading something that is licensed, like commercially, like that you paid for, you have to be logged in. But if you just want to do WinGet install CPU-Z, which is free, and it worked fine on the Windows 10 version of WinGet without an App Store app or App Store account. Now on Windows 11 is like, I can't find your Microsoft Store account. I can't get this, which is dumb and anti-user.
Here's the question about that. I think maybe we have to give the Microsoft devs a little leeway here, because I have a feeling that was a feature that got bolted on in the boardroom at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably built something good, and they were like, wait a minute.
How can we juice our App Store numbers?
Yeah, we need accounts for this. What are you just giving this away? Get some registrations here.
Once again, the operating system is not about making the user have a better experience.
You are not the customer. Unless maybe you buy from Valve. Valve does seem to still be kind of the good guys. Remember that time that... was it like they weren't giving refunds, or they screwed something up and Gabe was on vacation in Aruba or something and he flew back and it was like, what are you doing? Yeah. No, you will not destroy the user's experience. When he dies, we are in trouble. But for now, we have this kind of beauty.
Valve opens up a Steam Deck to explain why it thinks you shouldn't. Valve doesn't recommend opening up the device, but if you still plan to, this video might be a useful guide. Some really awesome things this is not the headline that I would have gone with for this at all. This video shows how to do repairs for people that are experiencing repairs, because they figure that the things that people are going to break are those the 5-way hat switch Joy-Con things. And so this video is like, here's how you replace it, and here's where we're going to sell first-party replacement parts. Like, you don't have to get it from us. There's going to be parts, battery replacement, and there was something else.
I think they probably saw what Nintendo was going through with their Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, let's get in front of that.
Yeah. I mean, but again, is it Gabe that's doing that, or the culture of the company?
Also, the M.2.
Oh, yeah, replaceable.
A lot of people are going to try to do that. Yeah. Because didn't you order the small one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're definitely...
With the intention, I already have a 1 terabyte Kioxia, those are awesome. Those are low power M.2s enough to use on a Raspberry Pi without a supplemental, something crazy on the power supply. Because some of those USB to M.2 adapters on the Raspberry Pi use too much power. If you use a Samsung M.2, works great with the Kioxia ones.
So they'll walk you through at least how to do that if that was your plan. Now, they do say don't do it. They might not honor your warranty if you do it, but they are going to show you how to do it, because they know that some of you are going to do it.
They won't honor your warranty if you screw it up and you do it. If you get it together and the warranty causes some other problem, then you're probably okay.
I don't know about that.
We can Moss Magnuson their ass if they get squirrely about that.
Are you offering legal support to all these people? I don't think you should offer that.
What about angry tweets? I can do that.
That's considerably less, but I guess your heart's in the right place. And is Apple's heart in the right place? Once again, they are locking down the garden a bit more, but this one does seem maybe user-friendly.
Apple says you must offer a way to delete your account starting in early 2022 to app developers. So if you have an app store thing and you let people sign up and somebody wants to delete their info, Apple says, well, you got to give them a way to do that.
You don't have to do it in the app. You are still allowed to link them away to a website, but there must be a button. It has to exist. PS3, man, now that it's 2 generations ago, it does seem weird. But I guess when they sold it, they promised this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they told us, I don't know if they actually said how long it was going to be, but you expect it to last. If you buy something, you expect to still be able to use it, right?
Sony is planning to make PS3 and Vita stores nearly unusable. They're taking away the payment card thing. So if you right now you can use PayPal or credit cards, well, late October, no more.
So you can use a gift card that you buy at a physical store, or you can load money onto your Sony account, but I think you have to do that in blocks, right?
Yeah.
And it's never the amount you need to spend. So then you got $3-4 left over, and you're like, oh, you can't get it back, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
So you're like, well, let me just top that off and get this other thing, and it's just a terrible cycle. It's anti-consumer, for sure. Plenty of people have proven that business model is anti-consumer.
So frustrating.
Although if you're still rocking the PS3, maybe just give up fast food for a month, get that PS4. Or I guess it's PS5 now, right?
If you can find them.
I bought a PS4. I played it one time. No, twice. I played it twice. I take that back. Played Spider-Man twice. That was a stupid purchase.
I've been playing Simu on the GPD Win 3. That's kind of fun.
I don't think you'd need a PS5 for that.
Nope.
Remember the apes, the evolved apes, the NFT, where everybody was like, what? That's crazy. And it was like, yeah, you don't understand NFTs. Well, maybe we were right all along.
Investors spent millions on the quote-unquote evolved apes NFTs. And then they got scammed. The developer behind the NFT project, Evil Ape, suddenly disappeared along with the Twitter account and $2.7 million.
I hate this art style. So I didn't understand this originally. Did you understand this was supposed to be a game?
No.
Yeah, so apparently all of this was like art for a fighting game that was going to star all of these apes. And they expected it to be a huge hit. I think they tried to do the, what's the space game that will forever be in development?
Star Citizen?
Yeah, Star Citizen. I think they were trying to pull like a Star Citizen kind of deal here. But they didn't expect the huge success of the NFTs. So once they got that, they were like, well, we're kind of done here, aren't we?
See you guys.
They just noped out, took all the money.
Nice.
The people who were left behind elected a leader. He was a guy that spent $10,000 on 2 of these things. And they have, I guess, like, they've come together in this stress and they've bonded. They're going to try to make the game. I don't think they'll make it.
Well, at least they own the rights to the NFTs. ... Question mark.
Yeah. So valuable. DeFi is a big keyword. Decentralized. That's what that means, because a lot of the cryptocurrency stuff has a centralized thing, and then when things happen, they can actually void transactions. Or Joe Biden can get on their case and make them do certain things.
Hey, these Bitcoin addresses are going to Iran. You can't send money there.
Yeah. So you decentralize to beat that, but it introduces its own risks.
Compound founder says that the $80 million bug presents a moral dilemma for DeFi users. So this was a bug with like contract execution or something for this particular coin that has a lot of users. And initially it was like, oh, it's only 60 million. And then somehow they figured out to make it like 80 million. But they didn't actually put the users' coins at risk. It was like the foundation's coins.
It's future payment for proof of something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and so now it's like, well, because it is kind of, we could actually change it, but there's a process for changing it which takes like 90 days. So fixing the bug would take like 90 days, and by then all the horses have escaped.
Isn't that also kind of a little bit flying in the face of DeFi?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still decentralized because everybody has to agree to it, but it's also slow.
So they're asking for people to give it back. I don't see that happening.
They might. I mean, they could change the protocol and like do something Herculean.
If you give it back, they're willing to let you keep 10%, which is probably a decent little chunk of money.
Yeah.
You don't have to get sued. You didn't do anything for it. It's free money. Pennies from heaven. Now, this is nothing new. We've seen this several times before to various levels of success. I don't think anybody's done it in a way where people are like, oh my God, I can't live without this. I think it's always been a gimmick. Can Bezos do it right?
Amazon is reportedly working on a smart fridge that tracks what's inside, and so it can automatically restock. He's got to close the loop here. He's not thinking enough outside the box. Not only does the fridge have to know what's inside, it has to know what meals you can make with the thing that's inside.
Yeah. Obviously, that'll be easy to do if you buy the stuff from Amazon, because then they'll have that visual training set. But if you come up with other stuff, this is probably going to be one of those things where it's like, yeah, this works perfectly as long as you get everything from Whole Foods and Amazon. And some people will do that.
You couldn't just hold up a sack of bananas and it's like, I don't recognize that. You got to put the holographic sticker on it. It's like, oh, those are bananas.
What are those, Kroger bananas? I'm turning their fridge off.
For this banana pudding recipe, we will require 1.25 Kroger bananas because they are inferior as compared with the Amazon bananas.
Please check this box to acknowledge that the flavor profile will suffer because of your choices. You know who's having a good time right now? Recently moved away from California down to Austin, probably just getting wild in the Austin nightlife. It's Elon Musk.
3 Tesla vehicle deliveries. Quarter 3, Tesla vehicles deliveries hit another record in quarter 3, beating analysts' estimates. So, yeah, Tesla's getting those things put together immediately.
Even in China.
Although I've noticed on Twitter, the people that are taking delivery of their Teslas have some quality control complaints.
Well, we always knew that. I mean, they're slapping them together, but they're doing it quick. So, and a lot of people talk crap about, it's like, oh, this is transitory and whatever. You got to give it up. I mean, he's been doing it consistently for a long time now.
Yeah.
Some people have complained, it's like, don't say that he did it. It's his peons that did it. I mean, we understand that. What are their names? I don't know their names.
Well, there's Bob in accounting. Good job, Bob. I see you.
You contributed directly to this, Bob. And, I didn't realize this was a story. I ruined it.
CNBC, Tesla moves headquarters from California to Texas. This is CNBC's take on it, which is kind of fun. It's always fun when the established, like CNBC is like, I don't know, Tesla, you should probably short them. Like all their articles, like, this is probably bad for Tesla, but this one's okay.
Because the anti-California narrative is too close to Trump. You can't get anywhere near it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So this is all about the taxes and then what he claimed was the fascist way that they locked down during the thing. Remember all that? He hated that. So he's moved the headquarters. He has already moved to Austin and still going to have everything in California. It's just that he's not going to be there. I mean, he'll be there from time to time, I'm sure. But if you're working at Tesla because you want the chance for him to walk by and you could touch the hem of his garment like Jesus, you can't work in California anymore. You got to go to Texas. And we have known for a while that this Let's Encrypt certificate was going to expire. Warnings were given, but apparently not heeded.
Fortinet, Shopify, and more report issues after the root CA certificate from Let's Encrypt expires. So you could have a perfectly valid Let's Encrypt certificate, but the root certificate was going to expire before yours, and that was the problem. So you would have to rekey your certificate automatically. Everybody that's using Let's Encrypt has automated certificate renewal, but a lot of certificates wouldn't auto-renew because the program doesn't check to see if the root CA is going to expire, which would make you have to renew your certificate a little prematurely. So it created a lot of problems.
Probably won't be too much. They'll get it resolved, but that is annoying.
Yeah,
it shows how much the internet depends on that.
Yeah, really does.
Well, one thing that you do when you are a big tech company and you're just sort of having your way with the populace and the regulations and all that is that when things start to heat up and the regulators come sniffing around your door, you form a coalition of your brethren. Even though you're at each other's throats 99% of the time, you can come together for that 1% to try and pretend to do things rather than have the regulator force you to do them.
Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and other tech companies, tech giants, establish a trusted cloud principles. This is how they're going to operate, how they're going to handle data. This is basically just a dog and pony show so that they can go to regulators and say, look, see, we're handling things correctly. We're going to do some good stuff. I think Amazon is really the one that's got the shortest end of the stick here because everybody's always misconfiguring their S3 buckets and their EC2 instances for no security. And Amazon actually does go out of its way to try to protect you from yourself with regard to security. It's just that some people turn it off. And so a lot of these cloud companies need really good stuff in place to say when it's like, oh, this unsecured Elasticsearch or this unsecured S3 bucket has all this stuff. What did you do? And it's like, hey, we're in a consortium. Our peers in the industry review what we're doing for security practices, and they signed off on it too. It's not us.
And think about like these JEDI contracts and these SpaceX contracts and stuff like that. the first thing they're going to say whenever that goes into competition or into court is like, well, we're part of the trusted cloud platform. I don't know about these guys. I don't know what they're up to.
See, also FedRAMP, that's basically already there with FedRAMP cloud hosting. So, I mean, it's like, you're not in the club? Sorry.
You might want to join. It's going to cost you this much. And ads being injected everywhere. That's the world we live in. Of course, Windows 11 is the latest one to fall in those crosshairs. But Samsung seems to be getting some negative numbers from this. I assume this is like they figured out nobody clicked on these, right?
Yeah.
That's the only reason they would do this.
Samsung has removed ads from the Samsung Pay, Health, and Weather apps starting today. The reason is they were completely valueless to anybody that was buying the ads. We could have told you that. We could have told you that before you even put them in.
Well, they did have value to Samsung, though, just not the people they sold them to. Are you hip to Squid Game?
I'm not.
Is it one of those choose your own type of deals, or is it just a TV show?
No idea.
I have a tough time getting into the Korean shows.
It's some kind of a thing. I think it's just a TV show where, like, if you're in like an insane amount of debt because that's the thing that's been created, you can go on this game show like a lottery, and if you survive, you get your debt paid off.
I get the impression it's kind of a Saw type of thing.
Yeah, but it's to the death.
So Hunger Games maybe a little bit in there, but that's not what's important. What's important is, at least in Korea, this thing is a juggernaut. I mean, people are going crazy for it. Here's how many engagement challenge as well. How many North Koreans have seen it?
7.
I'd say at least 100. You think Kim Jong's seen it?
I don't know. You think they're using this for propaganda in North Korea? Is like, look how bad it is in South Korea. This is real. This is from their news.
That'd be hilarious, yeah. But then you'd have a couple people like, I think I could do it. It's better than here, right? But the core of the thing is you just have to understand how many South Koreans watch this thing.
South Korea broadband firm is going to sue Netflix for the traffic surge from Squid Game. I really hope that this fails catastrophically, because the broadband firm could have avoided all of this, and it could have been all local traffic if they just implemented Netflix caches, which Netflix would have been more than happy to do for free.
Which all ISPs here do, right?
Yes.
Why would they not do it? Is it the South Koreans, like, they're so, like, proud of their infrastructure? They're like, our broadband is so good, you can't stop it.
It's like the Cloudflare thing that we had in the government episode this week, where it's like they're just hoping they get a judge that is so clueless for how technology works and literally doesn't understand technology that it's like, oh yeah, this sounds plausible. We get a few of them in our comments every day where it's like, well, if Netflix is using a lot of bandwidth, they should pay. It's like, you fundamentally do not understand the internet. Hush.
That's just astroturfing. Those people don't exist. Now here's a question though. So we often talk about our judges, like we were just talking about that judge in the previous day, the government story, about it's like, wow, here's one that kind of understood what was going on. How would you rank our judges in tech savvy versus South Korea's judges?
I would think that all of our judges on average are much worse.
I would think so too, but I don't know why I think that. Maybe just because South Korea is a more technologically advanced country overall, I feel.
They seem to be more excited about their technology, yeah.
But then you got Samsung's influence.
That could be part of that.
Well, I always love it when you get, we see so many ransomwares where they do hospitals and people die, or they're shutting down heat, and they're just doing these horrible, horrible things. And they're just doing awfulness. It's kind of refreshing to find a hacker who's just doing ridiculous stuff, not really hurting anybody.
Navy Facebook account has been hacked to stream Age of Empires. It's a heartwarming story about how they've just lost control of it. And there have been a few streams, more than just Age of Empires. 4. There was like a hey, hello, how's it going type of stream.
4 streams so far. And apparently they're terrible at it. They say they never get out of the Stone Age when playing Age of Empires. So I don't know why they chose that. They're not good at it. Or maybe it's just an AI playing it?
Maybe. I was kind of hoping that this was, when I first saw this, I was kind of hoping that somebody had figured out, with the Twitch leak, that somebody had figured out how to compute the stream keys.
But this was Facebook.
Yeah, this ended up being Facebook.
Yeah, so it seems that the only traffic that page got anyway was the parents of the people serving on that ship. They were very confused.
Yeah.
And I guess today is social for the second part. Yeah. And of course, the biggest story of the week, probably, right?
Yeah.
Was social, because poor Facebook, they made a big mistake.
Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Oculus are down. Here's what we know. So the root cause of the outage was they accidentally flubbed up the border gateway protocol advertising for their network. They took part of their network offline, which caused the rest of the network to try to respond to get it back online, but they ended up deleting themselves from the internet entirely. They did such a good job turning everything off that when they were getting ready to turn everything back on, they thought that they might blow breakers in the data center from having 9 megawatts of stuff come back online at the same time. They were like, we don't think our electrical grid can handle that. Impressive. That is an impressive level of failure.
Well, that's also an impressive level of forethought.
Yeah.
They usually don't think about that until it happens.
We brought everything back online and the transformer exploded. Now we're going to be down for 12 hours.
And the timing of that, some people pointed out, might be a little bit suspicious, because certainly there were 2 headlines that day. This one came first, and then this woman was scheduled. Like, we didn't know exactly what she was going to say, but we knew something was coming.
Yeah.
And then there was going to be the next day. So the day before, everything goes down.
Yeah.
It's very expensive if that's why they did that. It seems like a crazy thing to do, but I don't know.
Could be. Reuters says that Facebook is, quote unquote, operating in the shadows, according to a whistleblower, and lawmakers are demanding probes. So the testimony here doesn't strike me as Facebook specific. Like, you could copy paste her testimony for pretty much any American company. Amazon, I'm sure, is doing the same kind of thing, or at least there are people inside Amazon asking the same kinds of questions, because Amazon has its fingers in a lot of the same pies. A lot of the other social companies, I don't think Twitter's doing it, because Twitter's just not organized enough to do it. Certainly TikTok and ByteDance as a company, and a lot of the other, like newcomers in the social media field, are all doing a lot of the same kind of questioning and analysis. And so this whistleblower is saying, they're basically saying internally, how do they get inside our heads? How do they exploit it? How do they do this? How do they do that? And the response here is kind of surprising, because it's like, is Facebook better or worse than cigarettes?
They're both optional.
They're both optional. I think cigarettes are probably worse, but I think the response to Facebook is probably also worse. It's interesting.
Throw Coca-Cola in there.
Yeah, processed sugar.
There's all kinds of stuff that's terrible for you. And
sort of a problem.
And people are screaming at you that it's terrible for you, and you just keep going back to it. I mean, the personal responsibility.
Sausage toast, diet orange soda.
Look at that can.
Yeah,
it's so damaged.
I'm still enjoying it, though.
That looks like it could cut your mouth horribly.
I have had to be a little careful with it.
Is that just shipment damage?
Yeah, it's just shipment damage.
Wow.
All of our packages that we get anymore are mangled. If you really want a good laugh, there's a case box downstairs that's been squished like an accordion. Like, I don't know what could have done that short of, one tractor trailer backing into another, and that was the cushion to prevent them from, colliding.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what happened. Or not, probably he was backing up to the ramp, the loading ramp, and that just fell off and got caught.
Yeah, it's just like an accordion.
It's like the tires you put down at a dock.
I ain't even mad. It's just like, how did this even happen?
Well, Facebook being down for the better part of a day does have an impact on the bottom line.
Zuckerberg loses $6 billion in hours as Facebook plunges. This is Bloomberg Wealth. Now, that's a clickbait headline. He didn't actually lose $6 billion because he didn't realize the loss, but his value in the form of stock was down about $6 billion. It's since recovered a fair bit, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Time magazine, their cover this month was delete Facebook. So, I'm surprised that didn't negatively impact the stock as well.
Yeah, but we had that already. Didn't catch on.
No one cares.
That's like saying delete heroin. People are all about it until they get that. It's like, I need it.
Delete cigarettes.
I got to get well. And the other thing Facebook being down pointed out was something that we already knew, but maybe some people just didn't like to think about.
Yeah.
But this is the reality of the products that you buy from that company.
Oculus Quest becomes a paperweight as Facebook is down. So can't log in, can't do stuff. Yeah. You know what else was a paperweight while they were down? Employees' access badges.
So you could get to this menu, which normally would have all kinds of other stuff on it, but just doesn't load. So you could use it, but you couldn't really do anything with it. You could just live in this lobby.
Oops. Score another one, another win for Gabe. Probably sent a memo. It's like, do we have anything in place to prevent ourselves from accidentally deleting BGP routes? I think Cisco gear doesn't have anything good in it for that. In that type of a situation, I think you have to like schedule a reboot. Like you can cron a reboot for 15 minutes from now and do your stuff, and then it'll recover in 15 minutes if you screw up that badly. But I think Juniper has that built in where it'll automatically roll back the configuration change if something that catastrophic happens.
Well, if that product doesn't exist yet, it will after this.
Yeah, the people at Cisco inside that were arguing for this feature were like, see, this is why we need this.
I know, right? Instagram is still, I feel like Instagram right now is kind of in a weird place where they can't figure out what they want to be. Except TikTok. They want to be TikTok because TikTok is really kicking their ass. So they're just constantly moving things around.
Instagram ditches the IGTV brand and combines everything but Reels into an Instagram video format. So basically all those like Vine and all those experiments that they were copying to try to stay relevant, they've basically given up and made it Instagram video.
Nothing else is different. Still probably should just get TikTok.
Yeah.
Although there is the whole Chinese government thing.
Or Signal, if you just need messaging.
Or just don't do it. Well, TikTok's not really messaging, is it?
No. Oh, I was getting into our next story.
Oh, yeah. Telegram. Wow. That's a big number. I guess this is like people who, I don't know. How many people does the average Facebook user connect with on Facebook where they have no other way to connect those people?
A lot.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe this was just desperation to try and get in touch.
Telegram founder says over 70 million new users joined Facebook during the outage. Twitter also reported, like they had doubled their traffic during the Facebook outage.
How am I going to get my fix? Oh, God. Man, we are an addicted to society for sure. And another great one from YouTube. Boy, they are just so tone deaf when it comes to anything like this.
Have you checked out our Patreon?
I mean, we don't talk about this. I absolutely leave anything to do with this out of the news.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of tech news sites will incorporate this kind of thing, it's just not worth arguing about.
Yeah. Google and YouTube will cut off ad money for climate change deniers. Advertisers, publishers, and YouTube creators can no longer monetize content that denies the existence of climate change, according to The Verge.
Now, here's a question for you. It says denying the existence of climate change. What if I don't deny the existence of climate change? I just argue about what we should do about it.
Yeah, that's the argument.
I think that'll also fall afoul of this.
Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you know what would probably help? A dramatic reduction in the industrialization of things, which is probably also related to a massive depopulation.
It's going to require a war.
A war that results in massive depopulation.
Which, the South China Sea.
Yeah.
It's maybe percolating there, but you don't want that. I don't care what you think about the climate. I don't care what you think is going to happen in 25 years. You do not want that to happen.
We don't want that. No.
That will not be good for you.
That, one of those things results in a very slow death for civilization, and the other one is probably a very quick death.
I don't know. Would you rather starve to death or just go out in a nuclear blink?
It's bright outside. I'm not here anymore.
It's got its appeal, doesn't it?
We've got security and nonsense. So this is going to be a fun episode. And it's also brought to you by Linode. We're kicking off Devember a little early. Some people start with like Hacktober because we're in October. So it's like Hacktober. If you want to think of it as like Hacktober leading into Devember, that's totally fine. We got a Devember thread on the forum. You can get free Linode credits because we are doing Devember once again. And you can do it on Linode. You can do a development project, and that's all fun. But we've also got a gaming challenge that Chris is working on. We haven't worked out the details yet, but we're letting for you early bird folks, you can get started.
It seems like it's going to be Minecraft again because no one can think of a better. Because with Krista's challenge, it's going to be more about the design. But we're trying to get her to come up with. I think the problem we're going to have there is that the people who are currently on the Minecraft server and have kind of taken it over, because once we were done with it, we were like, all right, you guys can have that. It's gotten crazy. And they're already talking about, it's like, well, we need to make sure that the server can run all of my farms because it's slowing it down. It's like, no, bro, you need to make less farms.
We're going to set up a new instance and keep the old instance. So it's totally, you can see what it was like last year, and it's really incredible. The mass transit system on that Minecraft server is better than most American cities.
But I want this, here's the thing about that, right? We need to come up with a challenge where we can funnel all of that energy into it. But if I'm somewhat, like last year, I think the number one was a guy who had just lost his job, right?
Yeah.
And he was just like, yeah, I got nothing to do.
I don't want to think about the darkness.
And it's, I'm locked down. So let me just do this every day. Now, if I'm a guy who's coming in 2 hours after work every day, I need to be able to compete with that.
Yeah.
So how can we design a challenge? I don't know how.
But Linode is helping us. And Linode is your cloud hosting solution provider. They have solutions that are compatible with Amazon's S3. You can even do SSL with those now. You can do EC2 style hosting, Kubernetes clusters. We've done so much content with Linode. It's amazing, and our own stuff is hosted there. You should definitely check out their tutorials because they're putting together an amazing knowledge library of like set up WireGuard, set up OwnCloud, set up this, all with their hosting. And it's really inexpensive for what it is.
Got a nice library of one-clicks too. Mm-hmm. You can one-click Minecraft. We don't because we use some mods to try to anti-grief our servers, but you can totally one-click on Minecraft. You just want to make your own.
Yeah.
Let your kids play Minecraft online without being harassed by, child predators.
Yay! It's a password that only they and their friends have.
Until somebody give it away. And then Jared from Subway's on your Minecraft server.
Is he out yet? I don't think he's out yet.
I think he will be fairly soon, though.
Yeah, probably.
That's going to be weird. Think he'll get a reality show?
Yes.
Well, the big news we've kind of already talked about was the Twitch. Well, I guess, which was the bigger story? Facebook or Twitch? Had to be Facebook, right?
Facebook, yeah.
But Twitch.
Good timing on Twitch's part.
Yeah, Twitch was maybe worse, right? Because, oh boy, everything was leaked.
Twitch source code and business data leaked on 4chan. This is literally everything. All of everything. The number of subs, who subbed to what, the accounts, the password hashes, so they say, a whole bunch of other things. I haven't seen the stream keys, but when you reset your password, it resets your stream key. So, and curiously, Twitch still hasn't forced a password reset, which is very surprising.
I changed mine, and I learned that now Twitch will let you change your username.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, that was cool. I didn't know that. So I imagine a lot of people are going to be doing that. But yeah, like you say, there is nothing that did not come out. Obviously, all the money came out, and a lot of people were somewhat embarrassed by, like all of a sudden the reviewers were like, "Oh, you're making $3 million a year."
I was really hoping that somebody like Dr. Shane would be in the list, and it's like, oh, good for him. He's making like $100,000 a month, but. No, you watch his stuff and you just feel bad for him.
Luckily, we don't have to worry about that because we're lucky to break 600 in a given month. And most of that comes from Galinda.
Thank you.
I shouldn't say that because then everybody else is like, I donate just as much as him.
Like Nubbin. Come on, Nubbin.
Poor Nubbin. But obviously, once that happens, you got to start pointing fingers, right? People got to bring up all the horrible stuff that led up to this.
Twitch's security problems started long before this week's hack, according to The Verge. Bad security practices made the breach seem inevitable from former employees. So this is talking about how there have been a lot of hate raids. There have been a lot of people that have found success online, Twitch streaming, niche content kind of things. And some people are just, I don't know, it upsets them, and so But
I don't think that's what spawned that. I think a lot of the hate raid stuff was because of like politics and sexuality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of those people are getting on there, spouting off, telling people how to live.
Yeah.
And then the 4chan gets together and they're like, how can we hurt them? And they're very good at it.
How can we have these two groups pitted against one another?
Well, that's what Twitch doesn't want.
Yeah. Well, their tools for dealing with that were also in that leak. And so now you have more ammunition to know how to defeat those tools. But also there's just basic things that they could do to make things a little better in terms of like blacklisting things and to deal with hate raids as they happen. But here's the code base. They obviously haven't done that. So I think this leak will also force them to deal with that in a little bit more head-on kind of a way.
It also revealed that there was a Steam competitor
Oh yeah,
buried in all of that.
Amazon is working on a game competitor or game distribution platform competitor. Oops.
You know what? It's going to be the Epic model.
It's probably why Amazon bought them.
Amazon Prime is going to give me so many free games that I'm going to have to adopt another game library. Great. Thanks. Well, Google has been pounding on the desk saying you all need to turn on two-factor authentication. What is wrong with you? The uptake was what, like 10% or 30% maybe? It was really low. And so they're saying, what can we do to get people to do this?
Google is about to turn on two-factor authentication by default for millions of users. This is really just a ploy to sunset a bunch of inactive accounts, in my opinion. They're also changing how the inactive account manager thing works. So like if Ryan doesn't log in for a month, he can have a setting that's like, if I don't log in for 3 months, assume that I'm dead and send an email to this person who can then have control of my stuff, which is kind of a cool feature.
Until you get arrested.
Yeah. You know, this is one way that Google is going to get rid of inactive accounts.
That's going to hurt our YouTube subscriber count.
Probably.
And Apple has added another feature, this one more security focused, to its iOS. A lot of people have been screaming for this for a long time.
Apple finally lets you report App Store scams. Remember that whole epic Apple lawsuit? And Apple was like, we don't have scams in the App Store. If we did, we would have a button for it.
Remember the $35 dog fax via SMS?
Now you can report an error.
Nothing might happen, but you'll feel good pressing the button, right?
Apple's going to very quickly find that it's got a staffing problem because of too many presses of the button.
Yeah. How long before they have to hire Accenture from Facebook?
That would be a pretty cool rotation. It's like a one day you have to look at like the most really awful stuff, and then the rest of the week you got the cool down for, you know.
Yeah. How many Apple bugs does it take to make up for one murdered lizard?
Or one beheading video. It's just like...
Well, we've talked a lot about bug bounties, and the bug bounty programs are really good PR things, and they're actually very useful because it costs you a lot less to pay the bounty than to deal with the fallout. What if Twitch had a bug bounty and they had found the leak? My God, that would be a lot better, right? But they do tend to lowball.
Twitch researcher refuses Telegram's bounty award and discloses an auto-delete bug. Telegram took months to fix the quote-unquote self-destruct message bug, and then it requested silence. So this researcher was like, all right, you know what? Let's just publish this.
So Telegram has this auto-delete thing, and I guess that's like, you know, didn't Twitter do that for a while? Mm-hmm. Where you do something, and then it just disappears completely. Well, the images and the messages would get deleted, but the images still stored on your device. So if you sent a temporary nude, it's like, oh, I would never risk doing that for real, but this is going to get deleted.
No, it's still there.
And this man was offered $1,000. He was insulted by that. This is terrifying because this kind of goes along with all of those supply chain attacks, right?
Yes.
You don't know that this risk is there because you don't know that this company is even part of your world, but it is.
A company that routes billions of text messages quietly says that it was hacked. So billions of text messages a year, and hackers had unauthorized access to its systems for years.
2016 is when they got in.
So I think we just figured out how a lot of the two-factor hacks happened with
the crypto.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
because if they can identify, all they have to do is find some data dump that marries your account email with, or your SMS number with your value in crypto.
Yep.
Once they make that comparison, that's easy.
Yeah. And they can look through all your old text messages if you texted somebody a password or something.
And they can monitor it because they're still in there, right? So that when you two-factor it to change your password because you're worried somebody's fishing around on Coinbase, guess what?
Now, the other thing from our very first story of the week that's kind of in parallel here that I alluded to is that all of your text messages were stored not on your device, which made it really easy to search. So law enforcement could come and say, hey, has anybody ever text messaged about this literally anywhere in the database? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that might be some new leads that we have for ABCXYZ. You think that, that data set is absurdly huge. We couldn't possibly do that. And yet here we are. We could. We absolutely could since 2016. So if you don't think that that will exist for Google and searches and anything that you've done in the past, you are very naive.
We need to set up a honeypot ransomware thing, right? And then once they get in and we're talking to them, it'd be like, yeah, this is not an important system. We know we're not paying the ransom. We want to hire you. We want you to manage the Twitch infrastructure.
That'd be nice.
Then they would just sell everything.
Yeah.
Because they're bad people. I love these stories. I don't think that this will ever be used in the wild, maybe by some, like high-level state stuff. But remember the light bulb?
Oh, yeah.
Where you could just shoot a laser at a light bulb and record a room. I love stuff like this.
A blank wall can show how many people are in the room and what they're doing. The technique is the latest method to glean a surprising amount of surveillance information from a meager source. So basically, this was using AI and looking at the wall in a whole bunch of different spectrums. And just from the natural radiation that was there, they were able to figure out where people were in the room, how many people there were, and what those people were doing.
And if you train people by filming the wall and making them do things that do jumping jacks, then you can train this thing to be better.
Neat.
Which is crazy. So obviously, who's going to be immune to this? Hoarders.
Yeah.
So you need to hoard for security.
Or just having the tin foil in the wall is probably enough.
You know what? Just put strobe lights all through your house. Anytime you're in a room, it's got to have a strobe light in it.
Nice.
And then the shadows from the strobe, they'll figure that out. We have a new add-on. I've tried it out for the past couple of days. I haven't noticed a ton of difference, to be honest with you. Broke a couple of websites. But it's nice to have something between no script and all the scripts.
The Free Software Foundation has announced JShelter, a browser add-on to combat threats from non-free JavaScript. So you can run this and still allow websites to run some JavaScript, but this is supposed to block a JavaScript like Blue Kai and Snowplow and Adobe's thing and a couple of other things that do the invasive analytics. It also blocks some aspects of Google Analytics.
I noticed that in Gmail, the live chat doesn't work when you make it.
Nice.
Which is great because I don't want that. Here's another data breach. These are just routine at this point.
Neiman Marcus. Data breach impacts 4.6 million customers. If you got a Neiman Marcus card, you're affected. They got your address and your name and your phone number and also your card. Basically everything but the CVV.
And they know your terrible taste in clothing. Shameful. This is fun because software as a service, right? It's wonderful, but what are you really bringing to the table in that equation? What are you offering? In some cases, maybe nothing, and you might not even be you might not be the cog in that machine that you think you are.
Ransomware gangs are complaining that other crooks are stealing their ransom. Ransomware gangs are shocked to find out that cyber crooks will scam other criminals if they can. So there's this kind of hierarchy where there's people making ransomware tools that are so good they can't possibly infect enough businesses quickly. So they farm out hey, do you have a lead on a system? You got an open RDP port? You got somewhere we can deploy our ransomware? Oh, you do? Okay, use our ransomware and we'll give you a cut. Except the criminals double cross the other criminals.
Because those crypto keys are coming through their servers. And it's easy, it's trivial. All the malware already exists to scan for keys and rip them off. So, hey, we got a big haul. Oh, that's good news. And then, you delete them. Take all their money. No honor among thieves, as they say. This is a perfect story. You know what? I should put it after the other one because that whole thing about the secret SMS. In this story, they point out the record.media. I love the record.media. They are one of the best paywall alternative websites. Shout out to the record.media. If you ever paywall us, we'll turn on you. But the record.media was like, we don't know how it happened. I think we might have a pretty good lead on that last story.
Hackers bypass Coinbase 2FA to steal customer funds. So SMA-based two-factor and gain access to user accounts. Guess what? More than 6,000 users. Uh-oh.
But Coinbase is going to refund all the money.
That's good.
It's expensive. They must be making a lot.
Shows you how much money there is to be made in the finance industry in general. Good Lord.
Yeah. For sure. Now, that was a low-skill hacker, I believe, right?
Yes.
Someone doing that, they really don't... Again, you don't bring anything to the table, so when they steal from you, what are you going to do? Go get a real job. These guys, or at least whoever built this, incredible.
Yorkshire Games Game Boy device could unlock a car in seconds. This, I'm pretty sure, has a Raspberry Pi in it. I'm pretty sure I've got one of those, over there.
I don't know. They said it was worth $20,000. Do you think all that markup is just the assembly and software?
Probably,
not
yeah.
the parts, right?
Right.
Because I can't imagine what part would be in there that'd be worth $20,000.
No, some of these unlocks, I don't know about this particular exploit because it doesn't go into it, but for example, the Tesla cars had a Bluetooth exploit which stemmed from a Bluetooth vulnerability that was in the Linux kernel. And so if you could get in through Bluetooth on a Tesla car, you could, and you knew it was a Tesla, you could tell it to just unlock the doors and start the engine, and it would happily comply.
This gentleman was caught. He was stealing a specific kind of car that I've never heard of before. I'm pretty sure it was an electric car. And I guess probably the electric car has the kind of new interface that this works with.
They arrested 3 people in total.
There's no starter, right?
Mitsubishi Outlander.
Okay, yeah. Mitsubishi Outlander. They only targeted those. And I think those are electric. Unplug the car from its charging point, yeah. So if you have an electric car, at least the Mitsubishi, you might be more at risk to this kind of thing. I don't know what you're supposed to do about it. Just
firmware update for your car.
Just worry. Moving on to nonsense. This is a great story. If you've played RimWorld, which is, if you haven't, you should. It's amazing. There's a device. So in RimWorld, your characters can get sad. And if they do, bad things happen. You really need to keep morale up in the camp. There is a nuclear option where you can just put brain surgery them and put the joy wire in their head. And the joy wire will make them happy all the time, but it makes them a little bit stupid. I don't know if this makes you stupid, but this is the joy wire.
A surgically implanted brain stimulation device could help treat severe depression. It dramatically improved one patient's symptoms. I'm not feeling real good today. Oh, suddenly everything doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, but now the power's out. I want to kill myself.
Oh, we can't say that. That gets us demonetized or worse.
Hyperbole. So they point out, now the girl that they did this, they've only done this on one person. They have no idea if it'll work on everybody else. But she was so insanely depressed. She was like, either just do this or put me down. I'm ready to do whatever. And she said the next day, the researchers were there, and she laughed, and everybody dropped their test tubes. They were like, "What? What just happened?" Because the first time they'd ever heard her laugh.
Well,
Think that could possibly be placebo.
Who cares if it is?
That's true, right?
Yeah.
Depression. Wouldn't that be funny if they start just giving people anesthesia and then sending them home? You got it. It's in there.
There are studies where they've given some people ketamine for situations like that, and just rebooting, turning it off and on again, actually does help.
Well, have you looked at the opiate placebo stuff? If they give you opiates for weeks and weeks and weeks in a hospital stay, then they just start giving you placebos, you still feel it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's at least one study that shows that some of the chemical changes, it cannot be purely psychological, because some of the machinery of the brain is still responding as if it's there. So having a little bit of the artificial means that you're able to produce some of the natural, or your brain learns how to operate its own internal machinery at a subconscious level to make your body work correctly.
It's crazy that we have so little understanding of all that.
Yeah.
Well, fast food, man, every fast food store that I go to, on the windows and outside in the front, we are hiring.
Yeah, it's
interviews
everywhere.
right now. Some of them are giving bonuses. They just cannot find people to work. Raising Cane's is no exception, but they have an interesting solution.
Facing an employee shortage, Raising Cane's is putting corporate staff to work as fry cooks and cashiers, because the corporate staff was making less money than what it costs to hire a fry cook and a cashier right now. Why not? It's a clever solution.
Well, but it's temporary. They're looking to hire 10,000 workers in the next 50 days. So if you feel like you want to work at Raising Cane's, probably got a good shot right now.
I feel like the inflation number thing is about to just go completely crazy.
Yeah.
I just hope that the wages go up faster than,
because we're not getting inflation, we're getting stagflation. We have stagnating earnings with inflated prices.
Yeah, that's going to be worse.
Considerably worse. What can you do? If you're living in this hell of inflation and you can't afford anything, but you still got your PC, maybe you should go to free-to-play games. But you have to be very careful when you're playing a free-to-play game that you don't give out any military secrets.
Classified tank specs have leaked on War Thunder game forums again. So this is a specs for a French tank that the French have been working on for a while. And it was some kind of an argument on the forum, and it was like, no, this tank, this is what this needs to be. And
it was
like,
the speed of the rotation of the turret, which think about how obtuse that is.
It's like, here it is from the manual. This is not correct.
So, yeah. Not all Leclercs have 40 degrees per second rotation. It says so in the docs. And this guy was a tank gunner. He did have the doc, but that's top secret.
Oops.
Yeah. I don't know, though. If I'm the military, don't you feel pretty good that your tank gunner is so hyped about his tank that he's at home simulating it when he can't be in it?
That is pretty fun.
Organized crime seems to be changing. I imagine organized crime during the pandemic had a weird time, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that had to be. Maybe this is came from that because, hey, social distancing, right? Even the criminals.
Mafia bosses worry for the future as quote-unquote soft millennial mobsters prefer texting to pistol whipping. And they have some quotes from, what is it, Casa Nostra? They have some quotes in there.
La Cosa Nostra.
That's like, yeah, they keep sending text messages, and we really want them. They're just not. They just don't have the stomach for what this job requires sometimes. And it's just like, okay.
And they point out this guy got busted. Hey, this is the second text. There isn't going to be a third. That was a threat. But if you make that threat in person, there's not a lasting record of it.
Womp womp.
So, be better, mobsters. This is just you know what? I just threw this one in here because I knew that Krista would get worked up about it. Sometimes I just target Krista with stories just to see how mad she'll get. Now we don't get to find out.
Photographer deletes entire wedding album after being denied food. So this is a photographer who was hired and showed up for a wedding.
But no, this was not a photographer. This person is a dog groomer.
Oh, okay.
They were like, they begged them, please, I can't afford a photographer. I'll give you $250 if you'll do this.
Oh. And they didn't get free food from the wedding party. So.
But it went from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Good
Like
Lord.
they were driving all over doing lake shots and, like really horrible wedding people. And then that guy, when he got to the point that they were like doing the reception, he was like, oh, yeah, let me put my bib on. And they're like, oh, no. You're the help.
Yeah, great.
So he just deleted the memory card and went home. Enjoy your memories. There's really nothing else aside from the headline here. It's just disgusting. This is what happens when the corporations capture the regulators.
JP Morgan to a boss, Jamie Dimon, to cut my $31.5 million of pay would, quote unquote, offend the board.
So he argues that his salary is set by the board, and to change it in any way would be offensive to them. So he doesn't really want to take this $31 million a year.
But the board says so.
But he's going to. I mean, he could then turn around and give it back to the employees, right? Would that offend them?
Yeah, nothing would really stop him from redistributing his pay to...
Or just anonymously start paying off college tuition and healthcare costs among the people.
I don't picture him as doing that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to fit with his personality.
Yeah, I can't see him doing that. This is a wonderful story. It's so, I don't know why, but it's so heartwarming. But then also sad because this was such a beautiful thing that had to get destroyed by cancel culture.
The lone white Costco cart, formerly known as Blanco, is a celebrity. So
there he is.
Just the one. And it was like, wait, is this a racial thing? Let's delete it.
It was not a racial thing. What happened was this Costco was upgrading their carts and Blanco got thrown into a ravine. So all the white carts were phased out and the gray carts were moved in. But Blanco was still in the ravine. They found him, refurbished him, put him back in the rotation, and now everybody wants Blanco. Except you're not allowed to call him Blanco anymore. People would be all over social media when they got the cart. They were super hyped about it. There he is.
What's happening?
Standing out. I don't know what they're calling him now. But if you live in this location, you can go there and you might get lucky enough to get Blanco. Make sure to take pictures.
It's the social media sensation. Oh, it's another Krista story.
Yeah, this is a great story at the same time. Now I'm curious. Well, let's do the headline first.
Elijah Wood says that Lord of the Rings orc design was based on real-life orc Harvey Weinstein. So this talks about how Peter Jackson first went to Harvey Weinstein, and Harvey Weinstein was like, "Okay, I'll give you $75 million, and you only get
one
movies
picture
or one
he
picture."
One, yeah.
And then he went to New Line Cinema. Peter Jackson went to New Line Cinema, and they were like, "Let's do 2, maybe 3. We could probably go 3," and the rest is history.
So apparently they designed one orc, but just to make fun of him. Now, do you think it was this orc does have like a very puffy, porous face, and Weinstein, that was kind of his look.
Yeah.
So you think it was this one? I do remember when I was watching the movie, I was like, "Wow, that orc is particularly messed up."
As the disclaimer at the beginning, it's like, any resemblance to a person's living or dead is purely coincidental.
I wonder if Krista's got any lore about this particular orc.
Yes, there is lore about this particular orc.
He definitely stood out in the movie. I remember that. But yeah, Elijah Wood apparently confirmed this and dropped some F-bombs on old Harvey. Not a popular man in Hollywood.
Well, I mean, if he could have messed up, the vision, if the vision for the Lord of the Rings could be that good, and he could have messed it up that badly, imagine how many other things never came to be because he just didn't have the vision.
Is that really what we should be mad about him? Aren't there other
No,
things?
there's a lot of other things too.
Dinosaur shrimp. This story actually turned out to be a lot less interesting than the headline was, but hey, you get to look at the dinosaur shrimp, right?
Hundreds of weird 3-eyed dinosaur shrimp emerge after a heavy rain. We don't know.
Well, they have, they're like cicadas, except instead of being on a timed cycle, their eggs are just waiting for moisture. So the monsoons came in, and then you just had
They're everywhere.
Knee-deep shrimp.
Neat.
I bet the birds were having
And the squirrels.
an absolute just
So many squirrels.
buffet, right? Amazing. Delicious shrimp. Also, those are prehistoric shrimp.
They've been around a long time. They're in the fossil record.
I guess it's a pretty good strategy for survival to just wait till it gets really wet and then live for 10 or 15 minutes and die again.
Not a lot of evolution happening with those. Or so it seems.
Well, the bears are prepping for winter, and that's a good time to watch them at all the state parks. A lot of them have cameras set up, and you can just watch them. They're in the salmon streams, and they're just fattening up beautifully. But how fat are they exactly? It turns out it's actually difficult to weigh a bear. How would you go about it? They've got a new way of doing it.
Is the bear fat or just chunky? Lasers may help scientists find out. So they shoot the bear with lasers to find out if it's fat or muscle tissue or just puffy fur.
Look at him. So this is LiDAR. They use LiDAR when they're out doing stuff. If they have a large structure, they'll hit it with LiDAR to try to figure out, like the specifics of it. And he was just bored, and he was like, let me just shoot the LiDAR at the bear. There you go.
Meanwhile, in the Bear CNN, there was a story about how these bears have been suffering a mysterious sickness that they're calling Havana syndrome.
This is their version of Clearview AI. That's the LiDAR output from the head of the bear. So what they're trying to use these for is to figure out how much of the bear's girth is fat, because they have to hit a certain fat content in order to get through the winter. That's 747. Remember him? He was the fattest bear at 2020.
He's got quite the pouch going.
Can he regain the title?
No way.
Or retain, I guess is the word I'm looking for there.
He's retaining fat, water, and the title.
He's really got to cut his sodium. And you know what? We got no Krista this week, which means we get no Facebook.
Whatever craziness she's found on Facebook.
But we do have something from the Facebook marketplace that Krista didn't find it, but a lot of people did notice it.
Missouri man is selling a catalytic converter online and has forgotten to hide the meth. So it's in the background. The police were tipped off, and they did make an arrest.
And you got to think that catalytic converter's stolen, right?
What's in the box, though? I mean, usually a stolen catalytic converter looks like it's been something that's cut out of a car.
What, a meth head can't smash a brick through an auto parts store window?
Well,
Why does he have a catalytic converter and meth?
that's suspect.
I mean, I guess he could just be using the meth to do his auto body business really, really quickly and well. I don't know about well. But they did catch him, and that, I don't understand, like, I don't know about meth doses. That seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot. I mean, if you go by how much will fit in a spoonful, and I think it's supposed to be diluted, that's a lot of spoonfuls.
Imagine if that was just salt or sugar. How long would it take you to go through that in your normal cooking?
Oh, that's at least 3 or 4 giant pitchers of sweet tea.
Engagement challenge. How long would that amount of meth last you? And this is a story where, like, they gave it an excuse. I didn't understand it at all. Did you? It made no sense. Like, how does anything excuse this? They really were just talking, and there were words, but they had no meaning at all.
The register reports that some cameras have been found hidden in the ceiling above warehouse toilets. And IKEA says, oh, this is for health and safety. And then it was like, health and safety? What do you mean health and safety? And they said, well, these were installed in like 2015. What? And it was because we thought people might be doing drugs in the restroom, but they're not really. We don't really pay attention to those anymore. But the reason they saw them is because there was some kind of an electrical problem, and the power was out. So the lights were out in the bathroom, but the camera still had power. So somebody looked up and was like, oh, that's weird. There's a weird red light. And it turns out it was a whole network of cameras in all of the bathrooms.
And they were all wired. They didn't just pop these up there with wireless and be like, yeah, we'll leave these up there a little while. No, there was infrastructure run for these cameras.
So I was thinking initially that it was people were spending a lot of time in the bathroom on their phone, and we got to deal with that. But they claim it was because they thought that people might be doing drugs in the bathroom.
But the first time you fire somebody for that, wouldn't you have to reveal it?
Yeah. Unless you found another reason to fire them. Or no one was doing drugs in the bathroom. And then you just were like, well, I guess we were wrong. People are just terrible.
And then you don't ever take them out, right? Because that's how that works everywhere. You never get your freedoms back.
Yeah.
Just lose them. And our final story, I am loving the stuff that's coming out of Afghanistan mostly, although this is Iran.
Yeah.
Where I guess maybe they're just like, hey, you're not going to outdo us. We're going to have better headlines than you, Afghanistan.
Iranian women on TV have been banned from eating pizza because that is too provocative, eating pizza.
Also, like pizza and sandwiches, okay, I guess those are somewhat phallic. Is that the idea? Remember the Chinese wouldn't let you eat bananas if you're a girl. But red liquids, what is that? Can't drink red liquids. You can have regular Mountain Dew, but you can't have Mountain Dew Code Red.
Engagement challenge? Do we have viewers?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Probably not.
But they're really cracking down, and I think you also like scenes in television shows where men and women are together have to be very specific, and the hijabs have to be like up to spec. You can't be too loose or too tight or whatever.
Crazy.
I often think about the guys who sit around dreaming up these rules. Like the guy that was watching TV and there was a girl eating pizza. What went through his head?
I'm having some impure thoughts.
Was that what it is?
Yeah. It's like, it's not my fault. Okay, we have to ban this.
Wow.
That's a really sad situation.
It's a whole system that's designed to forgive men for their thirstiness. Well, again, something of a letdown at the end because I had timed it or planned it out for Krista's outrage to take us out on that one. You can always count on Krista.
Instead, you just get the abject disappointment in humanity.
And I kind of want pizza.
Pizza does sound good. You know, it's funny. One of the things that I had to deal with earlier was Mom was like, I want a thing from the pizza place for lunch. I'm really hungry. Please go get it for me because they don't have drivers. And it's just like, does it have to be right now? Right this second?
Is that true?
Yeah.
They don't have drivers?
They don't have any drivers today for some reason. Apparently 2 people called in sick and they're just stuck.
What's the peanut butter situation?
I was able to locate peanut butter on Amazon. Somebody dropped a link in the comments on last week's news, for an Amazon seller selling Jif peanut butter, and I got 3 or 4 cans in, something like that.
Did you overpay?
Yes, it was like $8 a jar or something like that.
Oof.
But Mom's got her peanut butter.
How long will that last her? Will that get her through 2021?
No, that'll probably get her through
That's a lot of peanut butter.
probably about a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
She likes peanut butter.
Clearly. Well, if you have any leads on peanut butter, chat, Jif peanut butter, creamy, right?
Yeah. No, not the crunchy. The one somebody also dropped a link for crunchy, and it's like that won't do.
People are very specific about that.
Yeah.
I don't know very many people who are just like, yeah, I'll have either one.
I like Alton Brown had a recipe for using the food processor to make your own peanut butter, and I did that one time, and the peanut butter was delicious enough to do that again, but the cleanup was brutal.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, how long did the crusted peanut butter stay on the food processor?
I mean, I got it clean, but like you get it clean, like you can wash it off, but then there's little bits of it left. And you're like, oh, I thought I got it. And like, you know how like the plastic of the food processor has some curves in some places and then little creases in others?
Oh.
It was impossible to get it out of the creases.
They put those, they put pieces of plastic in there that are stabilizing, that are structural, but they put them on the inside. Why don't you put them on the outside? Then you get a grip.
Yeah. Yeah, I ended up taking like a butter knife or something to like put in there backwards, and then you scrape the plastic, and like it took probably 10 or 15 minutes to clean up, and it was like, I don't really want to do this again.
And then you went and bought Jif.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's better. It is the superior peanut butter experience for anything that I've ever had, but it's just so much work.
Yeah, I like my burgers better than I like McDonald's too.
Yeah.
But it's a pain. Well, see next week. I think Chris is coming back next week.
Check out that Linode link below.
Oh yeah, and we should next week have some kind of announcement for your service.
The
Some
gaming.
people, we actually had a comment where like, "What's the rules for this November thing?" And I'm like, all we ever do is tell you to go to the forum and look at it.
Yeah.
Go to the forum and look at it.
Yeah.
There's
2 things you can do. There's a gaming thing, and there's a development thing. You can't do both. Well, at least you won't get a prize for both. But the development thing is for development, and the gaming thing's for gaming.
And there are people on that forum who have such a desperate sickness in their mind that they will help you with anything. Like they almost can't. A little bit of what Wendell's got, but way worse. Like Wendell has to help. If you have a problem, he compulsively will have to help you. And the people on the forum are the same way. So just go and ask them.
We appreciate you all, except for the ones that offer bad advice. Then shame on you. I don't know.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.